The topic of our class today was the inner being, the outer being, and the mother. Um, Very often we feel such a disparity between what we feel at times when we are connected to our within. We feel this lightness, this faith, this joy. And at other times when we get pulled into our outer being, in this same form, the kind of thoughts, the emotions, the doubts, the anxieties that come, we almost feel like we are two different people. So at one point, we are identified with the outer being, and at the other, with the inner being. It's as if the outer being is one world and the inner being is another world. Sri Aurobindo very beautifully describes the inner being or the psychic being with these words. He actually paints a picture of our psychic being as this place of worship. He says, accepting worship as its single law, accepting bliss as the sole cause of things, to her it turned. It is the psychic being, her is the divine mother. To her it turned, for whom it willed to be. In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory, where sleeps a consecrated argent floor, lit by a single and untrembling ray, and an invisible presence kneels in prayer. If we can just remember this one term to think of our psychic being as this very sacred, holy presence in our depths, constantly kneeling in prayer, and with that visual in our hearts, to just repeat, I am peace, I am love, I am holiness, I am joy, because this invisible being in our depths, which is always kneeling down in prayer, is all these. And yet, it is so difficult to reconcile this holiness with all the turbulence that goes on in our surface being. And Mother is the bridge. When we are caught in the turmoil of the outer being, we just have to call to her. And Sri Aurobindo places great emphasis on this call. And he says, to fulfill this difficult endeavor of a divine life in a divine body, it's only the Mother's force that can do it for us. So, whenever we are caught in the turbulence of anxiety, sadness, anger, just 2 minutes, if we can concentrate in our heart with her name, with her image, we'll come out of those 2 minutes a completely different being, provided we've concentrated not mechanically, but with love and gratitude for her. So we explored this Red Indian legend. A legend may not be true, but it's always a metaphor for a truth in our lives. So in the legend, there was a forest fire, and there was this tiny hummingbird. We all know how tiny the hummingbird is, going back and forth from a lake, dropping water on the fire. And the jaguars asked the bird, what a stupid thing to do, as if you can put out the fire with those few drops. And the hummingbird said that the forest is my home. I can't just sit tight. Whether my drops help or not, I must do my bit. So, in the metaphor, the hummingbird represents the outer being, The offering of water to the fire is the aspiration that I hold on to. And of course, the story continues that the forest spirits were so pleased with the hummingbirds that they sent a torrential downpour that put out the fire. So the forest spirits represent the mother, and the rains represent grace that comes down when it sees that we are putting our best foot forward. So it's such a beautiful mantra to live with. I'll do my best and grace will do the rest. And that best is to always hold on to my aspiration, to my faith, to not look at the appearance of life and say, oh, this is too terrible. I can't do anything about it. There's never a thing you can do nothing about. You can pray, you can aspire. And if there's faith and sincerity in your aspiration, the downpour of grace is bound to come. As Sri Aurobindo says, a prayer, a master act, a king idea can link man's strength to the transcendent force. And this is what paves the way for miracles in our life.